Hey everyone. One beautiful thing about the internet is how it's full of just people that want to do dumb stuff just randomly out of nowhere, and they have the freedom to do so. And one of the most common things I've seen is people like wanting to get into fighting, but they don't really have the talent or the skill or the training, as a matter of fact, to get into it. Like, of course, you could do like a charity boxing match, just one simple one where the guy you're fighting doesn't have like much experience either. But even then, that's still quite tough. So people have found ways to kind of like circumvent that by having like that raw fighting spirit be out on the canvas, while also being able to cut out that grit of being punched in the face or roundhouse kicked. Which is why you have stuff like the underground fights. And I'm not talking about like the bare knuckle Russian fights where they're in a warehouse and their definition of a ring, just like stacking a bunch of hay bales in a circle and making them fight in that. I'm talking about the more joke fights where both people, like both opponents or more, as like a trio, they all know they look moronic as they're fighting, but they don't care. Odds are, they just heard it from a friend, they want to try it, and they're like, yeah, why not? It sounds like fun. And there's some honor you can salvage from that, the ability to walk into a ring or an octagon, a makeshift one, keep in mind, and just wail on some other guy that probably like is just as fat as like unhealthy as you, but they don't care. They want to be able to get like one good punch in. While you also have like the referee like running around making sure everything's fine, when in reality he has no rule system in his head. So if he sees something bad, he doesn't really care. As long as it's on video, that's all that really matters. That's why you have stuff like Cage Warriors, which admittedly is probably the most well-known one, but I want to get right down to the bottom where it's so far removed from fighting they can barely even call it, where the only resemblance is like both people have like some fighting equipment like gloves or shin guards, which at which point would take it from like senseless violence to some kind of like organized fighting event. And I get to call it an event because as long as it's recorded and shown to more than like 5 people, it counts as an event. Which is where this clip comes in for me, because I think I found my favorite sport, if you can call it one, which is, it's so beauty, where the first time I saw it, I was kind of like entranced by it, and it was just so bizarre, I couldn't help but, talk about it in this video. Because you see like Russian people getting knocked out with bare knuckles punches to their head, and they have like brain damage after, but it's very rare you see two fat guys, so I'm not gonna be mean, somewhat bulky guys stuck by the waist in mud, deep in there, and just wailing on each other for like a minute straight. That's one of those things that you would see as a kid, and you'd be so fixated on it because when you're a kid, your brain's not full of memories just yet, so whatever big landmark you see in your life will just get lamented deep down in your conscious. But even now, when I first saw this clip, I knew right then and there that I would remember this clip 10 years later down the line. And potentially when I die as like some 80-year-old man in some care home in a wheelchair and my life flashes before my eyes, I'm probably going to see this clip one last time before I fully pass away. Because when I first saw this clip, it was like during the morning when like I woke up in the first 5 minutes and I was just scrolling through Twitter. And when I saw that clip, it's weird because you can clearly tell it's two guys in the mud. But when you're in that kind of state of just tiredness and grogginess, your brain can only process like the colors going on and just the flailing of digits going everywhere, trying to punch the people. So when I saved it, later on the day, I rewatched it, it still felt as bizarre as when I first witnessed it. And I don't blame myself because there's so many weird aspects to this video. Like for one, the frame rate, it doesn't feel like 24 frames per second. It's like some bizarre one where it's kind of like an odd number. Therefore, when you watch it, it feels like a bit, uncanny and uncomfortable to watch. As well as having like the mud fly everywhere whenever they swing their arms around, like shrapnel in the movie. Which, now that I look at it, it does look like a scene in like a war movie where like the protagonist just had like a bombshell go off right next to his ear, and he sees like a few feet away from him, and he has no idea what's going on. And you know what? I'm gonna say it. I appreciate that it's in some Asian language you don't understand, because that makes it better. If it was in English, you'd have more context and you understand what's going on. But if you don't understand what they're saying at all, that makes it better because your mind can fill in the gaps of like what led up to this point in time. But by far, the best and weirdest thing about this video that makes it so good is that like it looks like they're just stuck in like cement, which of course they're in mud, but you can barely see the body moving around. Like it looks like ghosts just like pulling on their arms, pulling into like the other guy's face to inflict as much damage as possible. And you know, it doesn't help the fact like they do this for like a minute straight in the video where they're punching non-stop, like no breaks in between. Where they were also like covered in mud beforehand, which means most likely they were doing this before like an hour before the video started. And this was the one time they wanted to get like a nice warm-up in to finally like get on video and like look really good. Before, sadly, they got tired and, you know, had to stop. It would have been good if they were like automatons and like just punching non-stop with like infinite energy. I would have liked that better. But anyhow, I know this video is like really insignificant and it doesn't warrant a video this long about it, but it's just one of those things where if you don't stop and appreciate the weird clips you find online, you know, you'll slowly forget about them. Therefore, you have to like take a moment, you know, to like just fully take in the video, you know, before you forget about it. It's very rare you come across a video that just bewilders your mind, but also makes you appreciative that it exists in the first place, you know?